Hi guys, what is up? My name is Dylan. Welcome back to the Popcorn Podcast. This is episode, I believe, number 22. Episode 2 of the 2024 season. Some random stats for you. Today I am joined by, I was going to say another stranger to the pod, but you're not really a stranger.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Episode 3, right? No, this is the fourth. This is your fourth appearance.
Yeah.
Technically, if you count the season finale. Hi, Clara.
Hi.
Hi, gorgeous.
I'm happy to be back.
Hi. I can't flirt on the podcast. Yeah, so myself and Clara, as you guys will know by seeing from the title and whatnot, are going to be talking about Poor Things, which has just been released in the UK as of yesterday, I want to say. We managed to watch the film a couple of days ago, so earlier on this week, at somewhat of an early screening. That was my second time watching the film. If you guys have seen the season finale of 2023, you will have known that I picked Poor Things as kind of my number one film of last year. I would say the only other two films of last year that kind of beat it out are Oppenheimer and Across the Spider-Verse. And I have spoken a little bit about the film in one of the episodes I did with Panwa when we covered kind of sort of the entire slate of 2023. And he's actually the person who actually said you'd actually be a great pick for conversation about this film. So
I see you didn't think I would be a great pick. You just like took some advice from Panwa.
Yeah. But yeah, that remains to be seen. Poor things. So Clara, like just straight up first and foremost, you'd been hearing the buzz from this film, not only just from the internet, but just from myself as well. So going into the film, what were you kind of expecting from the film?
I loved The Favourite. The Favourite is one of my definitely in my top 20 films, I think.
Oh, really?
I loved The Favourite. I thought it was brilliant. So yeah, I was really, really looking forward to seeing this. And then you said it was one of your top films of the year. And it just had, even the publicity for it, I think has actually been quite good. Like the interviews the cast and stuff are giving have been really interesting. I was really looking forward to it. And the visual style, I tried not to watch the trailers because you said it had like a really interesting and weird premise.
Yes.
And so I was trying really hard not to watch the trailers, to go into it like a little bit blind. But what I did see, I thought was like the visual language looked really cool. Everything was done in a like very stylistic way, and I love films like that. Yeah,
no, definitely. We'll get onto the visuals in a little bit, but yeah, as in like it was a film that you were definitely interested to see. You were going to watch it regardless. It's a Yorgos Lanthimos film. You're a fan of The Favourite. Like for myself, with regards to Yorgos Lanthimos, I've seen I think 3 of his other films, The Favourite included. I've also seen The Lobster and Killing of a Sacred Deer, which all of them I really liked, but all for different reasons. I think out of those 3, Killing of a Sacred Deer is I think still my favourite. But similar to what me and Panwa were kind of discussing in our episode, I feel like with Yorgos Lanthimos, all of his films I really appreciate, and I think they're great films, but they've always remained somewhat emotionally distant from me. I've never really been able to latch on to a character. The closest was The Favourite, I feel like, with Olivia Colman.
Yeah.
I feel like, once again, I feel like the emotion of that film came from the performances, like from Olivia Colman, from Rachel, at least from my perspective, and Emma Stone.
Yeah. But they were more like, as opposed to something like Poor Things, they were like more in-depth.
Absolutely.
Character studies, realistic relationships. Yeah. They were like, and Olivia Colman, that like the just sort of like tragic ending. I think I cried at the end of that film. I thought that was... Yeah.
Once again, you do cry at everything.
Shush, I do not.
Yeah, and Poor Things... But just like sort of coming off the films that I have seen from Yorgos Lanthimos, Poor Things is the first one where I have actually felt an emotional connection to, weirdly.
Oh, interesting.
I feel like it's not like it didn't make me cry or anything, and it wasn't like I was like exactly relating to the characters, but I found a certain fondness, specifically with like the Willem Dafoe character and whatnot, which we'll get on into a sec. But this is really the first film in Yorgos Lanthimos' filmography where I have actually felt somewhat of a real heart to the film. I don't know.
Interesting. You see, I felt like this film was definitely more cold than The Favourite.
It's definitely more experimental, for sure. Like I feel like it's doing a lot of different things.
I feel like in the essence of this film, he wants you to be a bit detached.
100%, definitely.
Whereas I feel like in The Favourite you were sort of drawn into, especially, to be fair, you saw it almost through the eyes of like Emma Stone, even though she turned out to be the evil one. that you did feel this like attachment and this love for the character she was exploiting.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like the detachment in Poor Things from Emma Stone's character, you're sort of introduced to her as a science experiment.
Yeah.
And you like her more as it goes on, but still there's that detachment. And there's like this because the whole film is so unrealistic. Like, it's hilarious and all of this kind of stuff, but you still have that level of detachment, I think.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say, maybe less to do with I feel like there is a heart to it, but like, I feel like what I'm trying to say is I felt a bit more warmth with this film than I had with his other films. The Favourite is kind of the only one that kind of sort of rivals that, I guess. But his films always to me have come off as quite cold and sort of, yeah, I've been very detached, mesmerized by what I've been seeing, but yeah, haven't really had that warmth. And this is the first one that for me, like, I really kind of felt that bit. Let's get on into the film and break down the film. Let's start off with a plot synopsis. Guys, it's pretty obvious at this point, but we are going to be talking all things Poor Things, so do expect spoilers all the way through. So if you haven't seen the film, please do go and check it out and return to this episode at a later time. But let's get on into the discussion. So, from filmmaker Yorgos Lanthimos and producer Emma Stone comes the incredible tale and fantastic evolution of Bella Baxter, played by Emma Stone. A young woman brought back to life by the brilliant and unorthodox scientist, Dr. Godwin Baxter, played by Willem Dafoe. Under Baxter's protection, Bella is eager to learn. Hungry for the worldliness she is lacking, Bella runs off with Duncan Wedderburn, played by Mark Ruffalo, a slick and debauched lawyer, on a whirlwind adventure across the continents. Free from the prejudices of her times, Bella grows steadfast in her purpose to stand for equality and liberation. Interesting. I know you have some thoughts about this, which we briefly sort of touched on here and there, but not fully in depth, which we'll get to in a second.
Can I just say that Duncan Wedderburn is such a good name?
It is. It's brilliant. Duncan Wedderburn. It has like a real sort of... And Mark Ruffalo is fantastic in it. You know what? I feel like that's actually a good place to start with regards to this film. Like, let's get it out of the way. The performances in this film are off the charts great. Like, everyone, Willem Dafoe, Mark Ruffalo, Rami Youssef, even Jared Carmichael, who's basically the guy who Bella sort of meets on the ship and sort of has the He's great. And he's an American, I'm not really familiar with him that much, but I know that he's an American comedian. And sort of is like he doesn't really, I don't think he's an actor or anything.
I wouldn't have expected that. He played that. So.
Yeah. I read about it a bit later on. It's almost like a random cameo from some random person in the film, and it worked really well.
So good.
But shall we talk about Emma Stone? Because I feel like, I mean, Emma Stone for me has been for a long time one of my favorite actresses to watch. You know, my love for La La Land, and of course, I mean, that's a terrific performance. But this is quite something else. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. No, I think so. Like at the beginning of the film, her acting as a child is very impressive.
It is.
I think that's hard to pull off, and it's hard to pull off without doing too many like tropes of cuteness. She is a child, but she's not cute. Yeah. And she's just sort of inexperienced and fumbling around. Yeah. And, like finding things difficult and sort of being a bit like rude and out there as like most children are before they have like built-in social filter, and she's just great at doing all of that without playing into like oh, what a cute little girl kind of thing. Yeah, she really is. And it's not just her performance, like just in the sort of the dialogue or lack thereof, but it's also the physical stuff that she does, like with the dance with Mark Ruffalo. It is as if like it's a child kind of attempting to be, I don't want to say attempting to be sophisticated, but literally knowing no other kind of way than to just sort of manically kind of move. Yeah, like, and if you have any like little siblings, children, cousins, you've all seen them like try and like dance Michael Jackson or something. And it's the funniest thing watching a child try and do that. Exactly. And it just, she does it so well.
Yeah, no, and I think she's great as well. Just her face is like, she has such... like her eyes are very prominent and like they're so wide, and that's quite sort of
her face.
Yeah, I'm saying like in terms of like, you know, when like babies kind of just look at you and they're like constantly staring, it's that sort of them just being startled and kind of like just taking in the information. So I think like she was such a great sort of pick to, I mean, they worked on The Favourite as well, but like I couldn't really imagine anyone else at this point playing Bella Baxter. Just completely fearless, and it also feels like the kind of role that is like an actor's dream to play, because you can do so many crazy things with it. And also props to her, just because like a lot of actresses, they win their Oscar and they kind of just settle and they kind of just do a job here and there. But she's really like, it looks like she's really like challenging herself and like sort of continuously.
Especially when I feel like when I've watched interviews with her, she definitely is like someone that really loves her craft.
Yeah.
And isn't doing it for like, I mean, I'm sure everyone has a bit of this, but isn't just like wants the like accolade and that she genuinely enjoys it and it's something she really loves to do.
Yeah, and she's a producer on the film as well, and you can kind of feel like she's definitely had a lot of input into sort of her character and how she goes about the film. It's also just crazy because obviously seeing her from like films like Easy A and like Crazy Stupid Love and like that kind of Zombieland and that kind of era, and now to see like it's almost as if it's like not even the same person. Yeah, she's terrific. Mark Ruffalo.
Oh my god, so good.
He was fantastic. Yeah, what did you think of Mark Ruffalo? Just
hilarious. That's all I can really say.
Yeah, no, just I did not know he had that in the back. I always knew he was a good actor, but like he has I mean, we know that he's quite kind of been around London and whatnot. I don't know if he lives there or whatnot, but you know, he seems to have taken in a lot of like typical British culture and really infused that in his character in the most sort of hilarious of ways. He was absolutely like, he is a lot of the humor comes from obviously Bella Baxter, but his reactions to things and their interactions for hands down like majority of I think their interactions, or whenever those two were sort of on this journey together, that was where I was kind of really sort of
and although they're not like destined lovers or whatever, but their chemistry is just amazing.
It's brilliant. It's so good. Brilliant. He is just a bumbling idiot. Yeah. Sorry, you were gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say like it just works so well.
Yeah, and also like I sort of hinted at the start, for me, I feel like where the warmth of the film comes for me is the sort of paternal relationship between Willem Dafoe's Godwin Baxter and Bella Baxter, like that kind of, because it's like at the start, like you're not really sure of the kind of character he is. Is he like evil? Is he like, he's obviously mad and crazy, but in a lot of ways just a brilliant man, I guess. I don't
know, when it started I was like, this is so can I swear on the podcast?
Yeah.
I was like, this is so fucked up. Like,
you're gonna swear that out of all the things in this episode that you can discuss that's potentially gonna get us cancelled, he's like, look, can we swear?
But no, but when it started I was like, this is so fucked up. Like, he's a guy that basically has trapped a woman but who has a child's mind in his house and has like surgically done something weird to her, and we don't know what it is, and you're just watching it being like, oh my god, this is so weird, this is so weird, this is so weird, he's so creepy. And then like you go delve more into the relationship and it is like very wholesome and warm, apart from his crazy need to chop people up and stick people together in weird ways.
And his like burping at the table. I know 100%. I definitely agree. I think like just the idea of sort of, we'll get onto this in a second, but just the idea of having an infant's brain in a, you know, sort of a matured woman's body is really messed up.
So
messed up. It's actually crazy that just even the premise, if you said this to someone, they'd be like, no, I don't want to watch this. But the film has this weird fondness to it in that relationship. Like he learns to kind of let go. Like he loves her, but he also realizes, you know, it's not the best sort of, if he keeps her trapped in his sort of home and his lab forever, you know, it's not going to end well. And he's sort of he feels like a man who wants to love, but you know, can't love, and he finds it in this experiment, I guess. And I mean, of course, like Willem Dafoe is just great in everything as well, but like he's terrific in this. Rami Youssef as well. I think this is the first time I've seen him in a film or a project. I think he was great as well. I was watching interviews afterwards, and he's American, and his British accent is really good. Yeah,
no, I thought he was very good, but he played like, I mean, I thought he was great. Yeah, but his character was, I think, the least interesting and least understandable character.
Right. Yeah.
Like he plays very one note through the whole thing. I mean, that's how he's written, and he doesn't have any development, and I don't really understand why he sticks around.
Yeah.
Like I get that he loves Bella, but I don't know, like I don't feel like it makes total sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely wouldn't stick around if I was him. But he seems like, I don't know, he seems like a good soul. And
yeah, he's like a good soul that bumbles along, that's sort of there, and is her like little, he's always going to be there and kind of thing, and doesn't seem to have, if the whole film is about her having agency of her own, this guy just sort of like sticks around at her like side and is always going to be there to marry her at the end.
No,
like... Yeah,
for sure. I feel like a lot of his sort of purpose in the film is not exposition, but to sort of, well, I guess in a way, like just to sort of explain things, or like you find out what's happened to her through him. Obviously, he enters this sort of establishment and like kind of goes.
He's almost like the audience.
Yeah. In a way, yeah. Should we talk? Cause we briefly discussed, but should we talk about like the whole sort of visual aspect of this film? Because I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this before.
No, not at all.
Like, do you want to go on?
Oh, no, I don't know. Well, I thought it was cool.
Yeah, no, I think it's like like just dazzling, like in every sort of sense of the word. Like this whole sort of surreal kind of world that Yorgos Lanthimos and his team have sort of built through the production design is insane. Like Barbie had a great production design, but this to me felt much more sort of. There was more depth. There was much more layer. There was a lot more texture. I said this in previously, but a lot of the stuff that they had built with regards to sets reminded me of like a children's pop-up book kind of
I was
quality.
About that.
It's very fitting for the character as well.
Yeah, illustrative and things like that. Yeah. I found it interesting because I feel like I watch a lot of films that are trying to build reality.
Yeah.
And they do that, and a lot of them do that brilliantly and have inflections of, the Hollywood gloss or great cinematography or colour that doesn't really exist in real life, something like that. But this is a film that I really felt really just used the medium for something a bit new and really wanted to sort of, because now we can push it out of the realms of like going into a bit sort of almost surrealist design and all of that kind of stuff. I thought that was just really interesting. And now that it's possible to do that more and more easily, it's nice to see people start to do it.
Yeah. No.
And that it enhances the story, and you don't have to necessarily watch real life all the time. It's nice if you can to be able to watch something fantastical and have the visual language match the story you're trying to tell. Yeah,
definitely. It's almost like this kind of like warped reality of sorts.
Yeah.
Like, it's like a lot of steampunk kind of influences and like it's sort of like this twisted fairy tale in a sense.
Gothic.
Very gothic, exactly. And obviously it's like somewhat of a globe-trotting adventure that Bella Baxter goes on. And then you have all these different locations and they all do things different visually, and it's really, really good and really cool. What did you think of just the kind of, I mean, this is, I feel like going to be the meat of our conversation, but the kind of the story in general, your general thoughts, like, what do you think? Like I said, it is kind of this weird, twisted sort of coming of age film, but it is also a sort of sexual odyssey, call it that, that throws a lot of questions and has a political edge to it as well. I mean, there's like so much to unpack here, I feel. And I've seen majority of people online love the film, but there has been somewhat of a kind of, not backlash, but the people who haven't loved the film haven't necessarily they haven't really, I guess, appreciated some of the messages that they feel like they're getting from the film.
To be fair, I haven't really looked much at other people's reactions to the film.
Right.
I thought it was hilarious. Yeah. Thought it was fun. I was engaged the whole time. As like a political statement.
Yeah. I mean,
like it was fun, it was exciting, but it is in this like fantasy realm.
Yes.
I mean, obviously you can't put a child's brain in a woman's body, but pretend that you can.
Yeah.
All of her interactions, everything that happens is just so unrealistic that she'd be able to do that and keep living.
Yeah.
And that, like Mark Ruffalo's character wouldn't sort of dump her in the first second and she'd be broke and destitute and get murdered.
Yeah.
It's like quite, I mean, that's a bit extreme, but all of these dangers she just sort of floats through.
Yes.
And that is like so unrealistic and doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
And that she can, even the fact that he likes her in the first place so much when she's so sort of
like an alien,
but also like so for like, if we're saying this is like set, I mean, it's set nowhere, but if we're saying this is set in the past, someone that's
like a Victorian age.
Yeah, Victorian era kind of thing. A woman that's so outspoken, so rude, so this, so that, like, she just wouldn't have been taken up by a man like that to begin with. I feel like he liked the idea that she was free and, you know, wanted to sleep with him. But like, I didn't really feel with if we are setting this in the Victorian age, that the whole sort of social pressure and structures, and that wouldn't be something appealing. Yeah. Just from how society is built at the time. I don't know. Yeah. But I still had fun.
But yeah, no, I mean, like the whole Mark Ruffalo sort of interest in Bella, I feel like is definitely more, to do with the fact that she is so different, and she is this kind of thing that he can't quite understand or crack, but knows that his experience with her will be like unlike anything he's ever encountered before.
And I guess for him, like, he's the classic, like in the interview said, he's like the classic rake or whatever. Yeah. He's the, you know, he's the fuck boy of the Victorian era. And he wants a woman that's gonna go along with his like free lifestyle and and doesn't expect marriage and this and that. Yeah. But like, even those people, and to be fair, they do speak about that. Like, in that age, even those kind of guys would have wanted a woman that would sleep with them, but then would also shut up. Yeah. Like, they're not good like that. I don't know. And they do touch on that, and they have arguments. They do
touch on it, because he hates the idea that she has sort of
But she sleeps around and then he sort of comes back.
Yeah, because he doesn't have a choice though, at that point, right?
Oh, why can't he just ditch her?
No, I'm saying you're talking about Paris.
No. Before Paris, she cheats. Like, she does things.
She does things with another guy, and
he's just like, he gets a bit annoyed, but he's basically like, yeah. I just didn't buy that.
I mean, it is a very sort of it is a very comedic role, and a lot of it is
no, it's hilarious on and funny. Yeah. All of this, like, I'm not because, like, that's not the premise is that, and in the visual language they tell you from the start that this is a ridiculous fairy tale, basically. Yes. A ridiculous and dark fairy tale, and that it does brilliantly. But as a like political message of a film, they don't. I felt like, and then to the like high point in Paris, they don't really show the dangers of what it would be like for her. Right.
Yes. So this is what I wanted to actually touch on. So like basically the film is this, we were talking about this briefly last night, was the idea that Bella has almost like a superhero complex, like you kind of mentioned. It's like she sort of just waltzes through this world and doesn't face real consequence. And a lot of people haven't that's the thing that, like, you know, she, in the second half of the film, in the second act of the film, when she's in Paris, her and Duncan Wedderburn,
such a good name.
Yeah, they've lost all their money, and she doesn't have anything. They essentially have to start from scratch. So what does she do? She goes to a brothel and enrolls essentially, and sort of starts a life as a sex worker essentially. Yeah. Obviously, the film is using sex and sexuality as the sort of main kind of through line of how Bella sort of discovers more about herself, but also the world, humanity, the people around her, the kind of institutions that, you know, the world has in it. I feel like this is kind of where some of my issues with the film started to kind of come in. Was this idea that, first thing that's got to be said, like this film is rated R. It's an 18 film. If you're not comfortable watching sex scenes, I mean, there's no point. I don't think anyone is necessarily super comfortable watching it. It is kind of supposed to throw you off a little bit, but like I felt like all like that segment, like I said to you, did get a little repetitive, did get a bit much at times, in the sense of like, I feel like the audience get it. Like I feel like the point has been established, and I feel like because it sort of entered in a kind of montage-esque kind of depiction of like sex. She just goes from one guy to the next, and she has all these interactions. It wasn't really saying much more than the idea that, you know, humans are just freaks, I guess. Like at the end of the day, it was like hammering that.
This is what I felt about this scene, this sort of part of it, is that obviously it doesn't, like, it's not like she speaks about not being able to choose the men she's sleeping with, that they choose the women, and that the men are not obviously, but like the men are basically all very unattractive and into slightly odd things. Yeah. But I feel like what it And that was, you know, all sort of amusing and sometimes at times a bit like disgusting and all of this. But what it didn't touch on, I felt, was that where her line was.
Yeah.
Because a lot of sex workers would like face more the extreme fetishes or like being asked to do extreme things. And I mean, maybe not obviously, but statistically, you know, sex workers are more likely to get raped, more likely to get murdered, and all of these kind of things. And I just felt like there was no danger there, again, for her, that this is actually quite something that's quite
a serious thing
and quite, you know, a harrowing thing for lots of people. And it was sort of played for laughs. And like, I did feel a bit like in that there was a lot of interesting things about, like, you know, a lot of people trying to put shame on her and all of this kind of stuff, which they like did interesting things with. But I felt like in just the expression of the dangers it would have been for her in that environment, there just really wasn't any.
Yeah.
And it was more like, and people were more like, "Ooh, you slept with lots of guys."
Yeah.
And like, "Ooh, they're not that good looking."
Yeah.
But it wasn't like what the real dangers would have been.
Yeah, because like we were saying, it is a very serious kind of subject. What you're saying is essentially you would have appreciated it if there was an idea introduced that, you know, this kind of life isn't all clean sailing. You know, it's not as, I don't say glamorous, but like it's not as sort of clean cut as it's sort of portrayed in the film.
It didn't glamorize sex work quite as badly as White Lotus did,
right?
But at least it like had an edge of realism. But I just did feel that, feel that it neglected a lot of serious things in that world.
Right.
It did say interesting things, like I said, about shame and about how people put shame on sex workers that like isn't necessary and isn't helpful at all. But yeah, it didn't touch on the dangers it would have been for her and how that sexism is a root of a lot of those dangers for sex workers.
No, I definitely agree with you. I think that because the film isn't that kind of, it's not the film that is trying to have, I don't feel like it's a film that's trying to make a political statement, but more so use politics and the world as a backdrop for entertainment and humor purposes. But there are moments in the film where things, you know, the fairy tale disappears for a second and the comedy goes away for a second, and Bella, like, she sees, like, when they make a stop when they're on the boat, she sees the poverty and like that kind of world, and she has a real emotional reaction to it, you know. So there is somewhat of an acknowledgement that the world is fucked up and this and that, but it, aside from that, just acknowledging it, it doesn't really do anything with it. It's the same with like when she goes back to her previous marriage at the end of the film. He's this psychopath essentially, and she, like, in the next scene, it's like
and again, that was another thing, because I feel like, for example, with the whole like sex work segment, is more that this is so serious that when I start watching it, I get a like reaction.
You think something bad's
when
gonna happen,
like something terrible is going to happen, and I don't find it as funny because I'm sitting there like not necessarily on the edge of my seat, but just being like, oh god, what's gonna happen? And then I don't find it as funny. And then, for example, when she goes back to her like previous husband or whatever, and he's like obviously abusive, controlling to the extreme, and he's going to carry out like FGM on her, and again, something really serious that happens to loads of women, and I'm like, oh, fuck, and then it just sort of like disappears and is meant to be funny, not that necessarily, but the rest of it, and like, and I'm just a bit like, I don't know, I feel like when you touch on something so serious, and try and make it serious, but then don't make it serious enough and then make it funny, it almost sort of loses both impacts, maybe, for me, personally.
I agree with you, because like the first time I watched the film last year, that whole segment, like I said, I felt like firstly it went on for way too long, but also I felt like a lot of the humor was kind of lost and it was dimming down, and I was like, okay, I don't really know what is going on here. Like, what are we doing? Where's the film going now, kind of thing? You know, it kind of loses I'd say conflict or the main driving momentum of the film a little bit. It kind of just stays in this area for a bit, and I'm like, I don't know, because like, you know, that world is a very sort of, you know, it's not as spoken as a lot of things, and a lot of people do have quite a reaction to that kind of stuff. So I don't feel like it hits home comedically like a lot of the other stuff.
Like the stuff like with her relationship with Mark Ruffalo. It's hilarious. And that obviously touching on like people's, you know, ideas of, you know, monogamy and possession of their partners and like maybe slightly like some sexist attitudes and and all of this kind of stuff. But that's all sort of, that can all be taken lightly and it's all hilarious and whatnot. And I'm not even saying you can't laugh at all with serious things as comic relief. It's just more that because they didn't quite account for or like I was waiting for the terrible thing that was never touched on, never happened, and just sort of brushed over, that was always in the back of my mind. So I wasn't free to laugh. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. 100% it makes sense. I feel like like I said, like a lot of the problems I had with the film, not too many, but like, I think this is still an amazing, a great film. Yeah. It's really unlike anything I've seen before. I can't really, when I describe it to people, I can't really compare it to other films. But yeah, like the last kind of, I want to say 30 minutes of the film, I felt was lacking a lot of sort of drive, of like somewhat conflict. Like her ex-husband sort of comes back and there's this whole thing. But then there's also this like other experiment, Margaret Qualley's other sort of Bella, where she's not quite as inquisitive as Emma Stone's Bella or whatever.
But maybe she's kind just of just new. She's just a baby. She's still like zero. She is. But like even at the very end, she's just kind of like just there. I think it would have been interesting to, I mean, like I said, the film isn't it might not have had like enough time.
It wouldn't have had enough time, but also like what if like Bella Baxter was like psychotic in nature and like you know, really kind of bringing in those kind of the darker side of human psychology and this and that. I feel like there was no character that really kind of, I never really felt, I don't know, I felt like there was no character that really kind of rivaled her in any sort of way. And once again, going back to this whole superhero complex, she kind of just goes on this journey and floats through it. And it's good and it's hilarious at times, but it's not an accurate depiction, like you're saying. Correct?
I think it's just but it shouldn't have been. Like in the whole, like I said before, it is this sort of dark and twisted fairy tale, and that is fun and it's a great watch, I guess. And I feel like if you view it as that, it is great. Like, and it is amazing. I just wasn't necessarily sure what I was in for. Maybe I'd enjoy it more on the second watch.
No, I don't know. I feel like the first watch for me, it was just like, I was purely just entertained. I thought it was brilliant, like technically amazing. The performances were great. But the second time when I watched it with you earlier this week, I was like asking myself a lot more questions with regards to what the film is trying to do, what it's really about, and all these kind of things. And I think you can like just watch it and just be entertained and whatnot.
No, definitely.
But 100%. Shall we react to some Letterboxd reactions then?
Sounds good.
Okay, so I've got 10 Letterboxd reactions to Poor Things. So first up we have Lara, who's given the film 4.5 out of 5 stars. Straight up goes, Barbie, but for mentally ill people. I don't know I was to say we should say whether we agree or disagree, but I think we'll pass on that one. So the film Drunk has given the film 4 stars and says the people who don't like sex in movies are going to have an aneurysm when they see this.
100%.
I can't remember the last.
I was going to say, what I said to you when I left, I actually thought the sex scenes, they were very well done.
Right.
Like they were much more, like I feel like I don't often see scenes in films that are sex scenes that lack that Hollywood gloss or that like airbrushed, like you're like almost soft porn-esque vibe. These were just very much like, yes, these are two people having sex. And I quite appreciated that. I thought that was new.
But that's the thing that was funny about it. That's the thing that's funny. It's just showing how it is kind of thing. And not trying to glamorize it and not trying to make it like making love, but more so, this is just sex making.
This is just what it is.
Exactly.
I quite appreciate that. I thought that was fun.
But it also goes to, I mean, I feel like also the way those scenes were shot is also the kind of, if you could say like a lot of how sex workers feel with regards to their work, like it is just a job. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not speaking from experience. I'm not a sex worker, but like, you know, this idea that for most people, sex is really it's a romantic thing. You know, it has all these different elements, but when it is your job, it's like you kind of just do it and then that's it, right?
Yeah, no, maybe. I don't know. I just felt like, but even like when it wasn't necessarily her job and it was like pure passion, or pure lust. Even just shot like very like
true.
Realistically, I still felt that from them. Like maybe it was because they had amazing chemistry or whatnot. But like, I feel like often when people try and overdo the like, because even like in films, I mean, watch scenes with like, again, White Lotus is the only thing that's coming to my head because I literally just mentioned it. But like scenes like that is still more like soft porn-esque, you know, super desirable, this and that, glossy, and it just feels a bit like it's this like visual language that's just coming back and you're like, oh yeah. Whereas this I like felt more because it was like more real and more like, I don't know.
No,
it made more sense. I don't know.
No, definitely. I also can't remember a film, the last film I watched with like this much sex. And,
that's
I mean, it's part of the narrative. Like, it is part of the story, but like, So Olef has said, just watched this with my mum. Unhappy face.
No.
Oh,
sad times.
Poor guy. So Jaybird has given the film 4 stars. He's written a little poem. He said, science can be rather odd. A new brain inside can be an old bod. Wait, no, let me start that again. I'm sorry, Jaybird. Science can be rather odd. A new brain inside an old bod. And with a yearning to keep on learning as fostered by Willem de God. Sure.
I can't lie. I love the effort.
Yeah.
Very good. Should put that on the posters.
So Cameron Kozak has given the film 4 stars and just one word, nothing else. Pornocchio.
Gotta get that, can't lie.
Sure. Zara has given the film 4 stars as well and says Bella Baxter's autistic swagger versus the patriarchy. Sure. A lot of 4-star reviews. Sophie Holsinger says, someone show this to the woman who hid her husband's eyes during Oppenheimer. I think she's referring to like the Florence Pugh scenes in Oppenheimer.
Oh.
That.
Wait, what? I'm confused. Say that again.
I'm a bit confused as well. She says, someone show this to the woman who hid her husband's eyes during Oppenheimer.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sort of.
You know, like the joke that like when couples sit down, don't watch it. Yeah. Tyler says, he's given this film 5 out of 5. This should be the first movie Barbie watches in the real world. I don't know if I agree with you, Tyler, but sure. Great. I mean, to be fair, it
is a bit of a Barbie.
It's a bit like an X-rated Barbie in a way.
Yeah.
Like Theo said this to me as well. Like, it is very much. I mean, I feel like it's a better Barbie movie than Barbie. No. It's a better film.
It's a much better film than Barbie. I
still like Barbie though.
I had my issues with Barbie, but I feel like my issues with Barbie in terms of like politics may be similar to my issues with Poor Things.
Really?
In that, like, obviously it's X-rated, so Barbie's not going to talk about sex.
Yeah.
But like the idea that although Barbie sort of touched on and like made jokes out of sort of the patriarchy and all of this kind of stuff, it didn't really show the real dangers of something like that.
Right.
Sort of like Poor Things.
Yeah.
Like, although Poor Things is talking much more about sex than about sort of
So I mean,
things.
My problem with Barbie was the idea that it introduces loads of these different problems, specifically that a lot of women face, but doesn't really delve into any of them.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
the danger thing is like, I don't really think. I mean, I didn't expect that to
not necessarily the danger, but like because if you don't explore it, it just becomes someone going to you. It's like this.
Someone preaching to you.
Yeah. And it doesn't. That's what I sort of mean. It doesn't show you the danger. It's just more a bit like, oh, Barbie's a fascist kind of thing.
No.
It's which is funny, but like it doesn't show.
It's like
you
making
anything.
Statements without showing it. Essentially, is what you're saying. But I mean, like Poor Things. I feel like, sure, like
no, it's a much better film, much more developed. I just mean like there's. I feel like if I look at Poor Things, that it was just trying to be a bit satirical and funny and isn't trying to make a political statement. I enjoy it much more. If I'm like critiquing its political statement, then I like have more issues with it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I kind of agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like I said, Barbie doesn't really delve into anything, but Poor Things, at least, it picks sort of things here and there and shows it through the character and
in a
her
way
experience.
It picks an issue.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's talking about sexual politics and it picks that issue and speaks about it.
Exactly.
Which at least like lets you have a more interesting portrayal, even if I don't agree with all of it.
Right. Coming to the end of these reactions, we have Alex Coleman, and he's given the film 4 stars and says, this Emma Stone versus Lily Gladstone battle for the Oscar is on some biblical Clash of the Titans shit. It's actually true though, I feel. I don't like, I was saying this to you as well earlier. Lily Gladstone versus Emma Stone.
Lily
Thoughts?
Gladstone.
You think Lily Gladstone?
Yeah.
See, I feel like I said, I think it's going to be a similar thing with regards to like Michelle Yeoh versus Kate Blanchett last year.
I know that the film, like Killers of the Flower Moon, wasn't built around Lily Gladstone in the way that Poor Things was built around Emma Stone.
Yeah.
But I just feel like maybe it's a personal thing. The emotion that I felt off Lily Gladstone's performance was just so much that I feel like I want to give it to her. Like, just maybe that's more
I mean, look, I would be happy if either of them won. I think it'd be great if Lily Gladstone won, but like, because Emma Stone's already got it.
Yeah, she's already got it, it's fine.
Even though I do think this is her best performance. I do. And that's speaking from someone who's obsessed with La La Land. But like, I feel like what's amazing about these two performances is one is very brewing internal, and you see a lot of the emotion in very minimalist ways. Whereas Bella Baxter is the complete kind of opposite character. She is like, you know, absurd and physically all over the place, but also mentally all over the place. And, you know, she can play around literally a bit more than Lily Gladstone.
It's like comedy and
it's battle of the eyes though, because both of them have such prominent eyes. Like Lily Gladstone does a lot of the acting through the eyes. Same with Emma Stone. She just has those. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be unhappy if either of them won.
No, neither would I.
And lastly, we have Jourdain Series, I guess, giving the film 5 out of 5 stars, and just says, I haven't been this happy watching a film from start to finish in a very long time.
Oh, wholesome.
Cute. That's kind of concerning, but also
a bit too wholesome for this film.
Yeah, a bit too wholesome, exactly. Good for you, Jourdain. I think on that note, we will conclude this discussion on Poor Things here. Thank you so much for coming and talking.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks. On that note, guys, thank you for watching and listening. Do let us know what you thought about Yorgos Lanthimos' Poor Things down in the comments section. Whether you loved it, whether you didn't love it so much, whether you were intrigued by the film or you were repulsed by the film, or both. But like I said, do let us know. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching, listening, and we will catch you very soon in the next episode of the Popcorn Podcast. Cheers.